Hello and welcome to A Game of Two Halves, a show where we talk Welsh sport and what is happening on the sports journalism course here at the University of South Wales. I'm your host, Marcus Williams. For this episode, we'll be hearing from the manager of Merthyr Town, a community rugby coach, and learn what motivates him to keep coaching. And we'll be delving into the world of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But before we get into that, here are all today's sporting headlines. Starting with rugby, and in the Six Nations, Wales head coach Warren Gatland has decided to name his side to play France earlier than expected, with the main talking point being a new centre partnership as Owen Watkin and Joe Roberts come in for Nick Tompkins and George North. Other players such as Ryan Ellis Will Rowlands come into the side as they prepare to face an underwhelming French side at the Principality this Sunday. In football, Cardiff City won 1-0 against Huddersfield Town last night in the Cardiff City Stadium, with a recent win in an upturn in form for the Bluebirds. Meanwhile, Swansea City were also in action last night as they drew away to Watford. This came as the Swans looked to pull further away from the relegation zone. And finally, in cricket, Glamorgan have reported losses of £316,000 for the 2023 calendar year. Despite these losses, the club has described them as reasonable. We are now going to move on to our first story of the episode by taking a dive into the world of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Our reporter Howell Fuller visited Tonopandi to find out more about this growing sport.
My style of coaching would be old school, really, compared to most new age jiu-jitsu gyms now. I like to keep the fundamentals there, you know, from where they come from to basic wins. Basic is the best, so yeah, I like to keep my jiu-jitsu basic.
This is Gavin Thomas, head coach of G7 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Academy in Tonopandi, located at the heart of the Ronva Valley. Like many of his students, Gavin has had a unique way in how he found and later went on to be a head coach of the sport.
Didn't really want to go into coaching myself. I was out competing, doing what I do, fighting, but an opportunity came up. My mate asked me to start teaching in a local boys club when I started. And I just fell into it, started doing more and more of it, and then it just grew into a club and now just evolved into what it is, so I have to just roll with it, basically.
Gavin also explains how his coaching technique gives his students a competitive edge over any opponent that they face.
I try and keep going from a position to off a position. So like jiu-jitsu is ever evolving, there's always new moves, come guards, new. Like it's a sport that doesn't, you keep growing off it, it keeps evolving, but like I said in the beginning, I try to keep it back to the basics all the time, keep the fundamentals, and then obviously when the new stuff comes in, we do the new stuff, but like to win jiu-jitsu and win jiu-jitsu fights, you have to stick to the basics, because if you haven't got them, then all the new stuff doesn't work. So
we're going to head to Merthyr Town FC now. The club are once again fighting for promotion from the Southern League Premier South. We caught up with the manager Paul Michael to find out more about himself and the club.
One of the oldest clubs in Wales, Merthyr Town Football Club is still one of the heartbeats of the local community. Playing in the 7th tier of English football, the club has high aspirations of playing in the top leagues of the domestic game. Manager Paul Michael also shares this aspiration and believes the club will eventually get there.
Going on to Merthyr Town, I think there's a proper football club here with proper supporters and a huge potential, as well as the fact that it's in a pyramid where, you know, essentially you can play as high as you want. We're six promotions from the Premier League, so I know it's a long way off, but there is that hope, there is that dream that in the next, you know, just because Merthyr haven't been one of the top 3 Welsh teams in the last 100 years doesn't mean they're not going to be in the next 100 years. Who knows what's going to happen? And I think it's that possibility and that dream that makes Merthyr such a special club.
Paul also explains how he manages to get the best out of his players when it comes to a fixture on the weekend.
I think just trying to communicate as clearly as you can, using visuals, using demonstrations, using animations, talking to people individually, stopping sessions, but just trying to get your messages across as clearly as you can, and trying to empower the players to understand what you want them to do, and then to enable them to go out and apply that on a Saturday and make changes when they need to, To try and make players astute, I think you have to make them understand, and I think the more means you can do that, the more effective your coaching is.
With Merthyr being in the 7th tier of the pyramid system, that does mean that Paul is in the unique position of having to have a second job. He does, however, fully embrace this challenge.
That's very difficult. That's very, very difficult. And people say in football management, you're in it full time. They say it consumes everything. Well, try having it consume everything when you've also got to do other things, and you've got to go to work, and you've got to, I know everyone has families and that, I get that, but it's very, very difficult. And you can't do everything that you want to do. That's just a fact of it. You haven't got time to do as much one-to-one conversations, to do as much planning, to do as much as you'd like to do as somebody in a full-time position. And in our league, and certainly just one step above, there's a lot of full-time players and a lot of full-time managers, and that's what we're up against. But it's a challenge, but I pride myself on outworking other people.
Sticking with Merthyr Town, we are joined in the studio by Craig Reddy, who is one of the coaches working at the club. Craig, just mentioned there your role at Merthyr Town. Could you explain a little bit more what your role is at the club in general, not just with the first team?
So I'm first team coach, which is obviously heavily involved with the first team on match days and trainings, warm-ups and part of training. And then also I run the academy up there, so the youngster players coming through as well, and organising the training and coaches for those games as well.
So obviously you just mentioned then your first team role, obviously coach for that. What with the academy stuff? What is that? What role is that almost?
So I'm overseeing it. So it's performance manager, which is basically the on-field things. We have other people who take care of the off-field stuff, the admin side of it, and I deal with the coaches, the players, the parents, that type of thing, and make sure that we got a good level of coaches, good level of players, and we're competitive within the academy structure.
So moving on from Merthyr Town, you have a strong involvement as well with the women's game. Could you explain a little bit more to our viewers?
So I coach Coleg Cymmoed. They have a girls' academy there, and then through that I was asked to get involved with USW women's team through Kath Morgan, who coaches at college, and then also through that I was asked to get involved with Ponty's women's team as well. So there's a strong involvement with the women's game. So
again on that USW topic, how would you say, what is your involvement with the USW women's?
So I help out with Kath. Kath is the manager there, and I've had less of involvement this year just due to time restrictions. But if Kath isn't there, then I make sure that I'm available to go and manage the team instead of Kath. And if she is there, then I'll go and help out in any way she needs me to help out, really.
Working obviously with students at university, and obviously academies as well with young people, how fulfilling is that for you, as well as obviously your first team coaching?
Yeah, it is. They're like sponges, they want to absorb everything, all the information you can give them, whereas at first team level you get players who tend to know a lot more, and some who think they know it all, so it can be difficult, whereas with the academy and with the women's game they tend to accept what you're saying to them and take it on board a little bit more, I think.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to have you in the studio. Continuing with USW, we are now going to hear from Sam Hancock, who is a graduate of the sports journalism course. He spoke to Connor Green.
It feels wild that it's been a year now. When I was here last time, I just remember the feeling of elation actually completing it, because there was so much stress and time and the meticulous planning that went into it. It just took a lot out of me, but also the absolute ecstatic feeling you had when you finished it. It was worth every minute of stress that we went through, all the editing, the organising of guests, and just the actual live setting is something that I think is invaluable when you want to become a journalist. Oh, it was brilliant. You obtain so many skills, and for wider life, not only in a journalism setting. You speak to so many people you wouldn't usually. You learn different ways of life, and also more crucially is you just learn sort of how to put it well is you just learn how to plan out things better with everything. It's so much more added to my life now I've done the course. Probably the best way I could describe it.
What was your favourite aspect of the course? Because there's a lot of roles in journalism. What was your favourite one?
TV studio by a mile. I think it's just the most rewarding. And I think obviously there are different elements involved. I think including the like I said, you have interview and editing. It's just an amalgamation of different things to make one complete project, and I think that's the beauty of it. Whereas things like writing is only a certain amount. It's like that set aspect of it is how good is your lexicon and your descriptive writing and things like that, and being succinct. But I think with this, it's just a combination of different skills just all coming together for one final thing.
Finally, what would be your advice to current students in all the years on the course?
I would say what you put in is what you'll get out of it. I think many people on my year especially put a lot into it, and I think you can see the rewards after the fact. I mean, we've got people working for Cardiff, you've got people working with World Snooker, you've got a lot of talented individuals really showing this stuff really. I mean, you can see that if you do actually put in the time and the hard work, it will pay off, and I think that's the crucial thing that I would say about the course.
For our final story of the show, we visited Ystrad Rhondda RFC to find out what it means to be a coach in a community club.
This is Gelli Gaeleg Park, which is home to Ystrad Rhondda RFC, a team currently fighting for the title in the Championship East Division of the WRU Men's National Leagues. A major part of this club is forwards coach Jack Dunning. Here he is talking about how he manages to get his coaching style across to his players.
Certainly when I first come in and started coaching with Cambrian, it was very much me as a coach just going out and coaching, whereas now you're in Ystrad, maybe it's to do with the calibre of player and calibre of boy, but it's more kind of player centred and player led. So for me, I like to think that the players go out there and play 80 minutes each week, so I like to give them the kind of onus to develop and kind of have a feel for how they want the game to look and how they want the game to play, and then as me as a coach, I look at the 1%, 2% that I can kind of iron out and get at to take teams on and hopefully get us over the line.
The Rhondda community plays a big role in Jack's life. This is also showcased when he is coaching to his local side and how he expects the players to support the local community.
It's I'm a local boy. I'm an Ystrad boy first and foremost. So for me, it's just about the local people, the Rhondda community. I suppose I love the Rhondda, and I'd like to think that they learn a lot from me because I certainly learn a lot from them. So yeah, it's a great environment, really.
And it's not just his players that Jack is hoping to inspire, but also the few young coaches coming through at the club. There are two main pieces of advice that Jack would give to anyone looking to get involved in this sport.
Never, for me anyway, I think for me the two is always be available. I like to say, because I'm player centred, I like to say to my players, no matter what you're going through, I'm always there for you. So be available, whether that's a message, whether that's a phone call. I'd like to think that from then feeling a bit of a relationship and gaining a relationship with me, that I can have their trust, they can have my trust, and they'll go out and put their best foot forward for the club and for the team. And then secondly is never think you have hit your pinnacle of your coaching career. Always be willing to learn, always be willing to look at kind of other coaches and coaching styles. Don't just get hung up on your kind of coaching style and think this is everything. You've got to be adaptable and you've got to be able to kind of bend and mould and as you see fit really, and go from there. So yeah.
Yep. That's all we have time for this week. You can catch the rest of the episodes from the series of A Game of Two Halves on the YouTube channel now. We would like to take a special moment to thank Craig Reddy, Merthyr Town first coach, for coming in. And we'd also like to take a moment to thank everybody that created content and up in the gallery. But before we go, here's a sneak peek at what's coming up next on A Game of Two Halves.
Quite a lot, but the stresses if you've played before or you've kind of been there. It was a really exciting time,
Operations. I'd like to get into management, so obviously I'd have to get my Europa B.
The coaching is the fact you've got to stand back and rely on others. You can prep.
Thanks again for watching. We hope you've enjoyed. Goodbye.